Hi, I'm Cindy McGee, and I'm back with a brand new pattern to polymer tutorial inspired by this fun, fresh boho floral pattern. I conditioned and rolled out some Primo turquoise and wasabi to a number 7 on my clay machine. And then I'm using the smallest cutter from the drop dangle cutter set from Create Along to cut out multiple petals for the flowers that are going to be the second layer of this overall design. For each of the turquoise flowers, I am layering the petals, 5 of them for each flower. The silk-screened background is made with the Toss the Bouquet silkscreen from Create Along. And you want to place your silkscreen with the colored side against your clay and smooth it out and rub it to make sure it's going to stay in place. I'm using a bit of a spring green, parakeet green acrylic paint from Deco to screen the image. You want to spread it evenly across your screen, and the squeegee works great. This is another Create Along tool. And then as soon as you're finished, you want to rinse your silk screen and allow it to dry, and then it'll be ready to use next time. Once the paint has dried, go ahead and add the turquoise flowers you've created to the back, and just sort of a random placement so that we can fill in with the other elements. Next, I used some teal Primo and one of the Sculpey Etch and Pearl tools to make small pearls to set around the center of each of the turquoise flowers. You want to continue until you have the little pearls around the centers of each of the flowers, and then I used a sphere tool to make an indentation in the top of each pearl. I rolled a thin sheet of Primo Sunshine Yellow and used a small flower cutter to cut flowers to place randomly between the turquoise flowers. I re-rolled the Sunshine Yellow a little thicker and used the medium Etch and Pearl tool to make the pearls, which I'm adding a imprint on to make like the flower center effect, and I'm using Create Along texture tips to do this. This particular set is in the sunshine, but any of the texture chips would work for this. Once the texture is transferred, go ahead and place them on the centers of the turquoise and teal flowers. I repeated that step with the turquoise clay using the Etch and Pearl tool and the texture tip, and made centers for the yellow flowers. To make the leafy fern type shapes, I extruded some of the teal clay to a really thin strip and then cut it into pieces and rolled them into little sort of oval oblongs and just place them as shown to create the leaf effect. Again, I used the extruder to create fine strands of the turquoise clay and some green clay, and then added the details around the flowers to mimic the original inspiration fabric. For the next set of flowers, it's back to the Etch and Pearl tool and the turquoise clay to make little cluster flowers of 5 pearls each. Then go back to the sphere tool and make an indentation in the top of each pearl for each of those small flowers. To mimic the white flowers on the original pattern, I've rolled some Primo white to, again, a setting 6 on the clay machine, on my machine, which is pretty thin. And then I'm placing some plastic wrap over it so the cutter won't stick. I'm using a small petal-shaped cutter from Create Along. You just need a cutter with that pointed top to cut several, and I don't need the whole shape, just the top. And then I'm taking a wavy blade and cutting the bottom to give the waved effect in the original fabric, and then place those onto the background. For the Paisley elements, I rolled some turquoise clay again, and I'm using the Daisies Mylar stencil from Create Along. Just place it and press it on, and I'm going to add some darker teal acrylic paint over that. Once the paint has dried, use a small paisley-shaped cutter to cut several different paisleys and place them in the open areas on the pattern. For the yellow and green leaf shapes, I rolled some green clay first, and I'm using an X-Acto blade to sort of freeform cut half a leaf shape. Place these in the open areas on the pattern that you've created so far. Then repeat that process with the sunshine yellow, placing this half of the petal adjacent and butting up against the green ones that you've placed. Extrude some of the green clay into those thin strands, cut small pieces, and add them over the yellow clay as shown. Use the pointed end of the tool to make small impressions along the center where the two halves of each leaf meet. Extrude some fine strands of white clay and wrap them around each of the little paisleys. Use the pointed end of the tool to make small indentations into the white outline for each paisley. Add yellow and white pearl hot fix cabochons to the centers of the flowers and the flowers on the paisleys. Use a fine tip tool to add small dots of pale yellow paint to the background silkscreen image to mimic flowers on some of the little leafy vines. Next, use the pointed end tool to add some small dots of teal paint. I think this is an eye-catching recreation of the original fabric. What do you think?